Well, good morning. It's a beautiful morning. It really is. It was like 80 something degrees yesterday afternoon, which was really nice. Today, not so much. It's supposed to rain, but still beautiful temperature. I'll take it. We'll get as much cold weather stuff done as we can. The engine ended up on the floor last night. The hydraulics must have let it down slowly last night. So we'll crank it back out. The only bad thing is it did land on the wiring. So we'll get that picked up real quick, and it didn't. It landed on the bracket, so it's fine. It just... All right, well, that was interesting. I had to pull it all back apart to get the fan in, because usually you just push the fan from the bottom in, but I had to lift this panel to get the fan in the bottom and then bolt it in because the tolerances are so close. And then that gives me a kind of an idea where that line's going to be to cut out. Of course, I'll put a straight edge in there instead of my little line that I got there. I still need to bring this panel down. It is touching, so that's the weird part. It's touching the floor level, but this side is still high. Maybe it was high before. Maybe that's just the way it was made. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. I guess that's the way it was made. But it's making this thing sit high. I'm going to check my pictures and see if I can see these gaps before, but I think that's the way it's going to sit, unfortunately for me. It is what it is. I mean, it's not that big a deal. I mean, once it's painted, you won't see that it's high, but it just bothers me because I think it could go down a little more and be in that little ridge. And then this could line up a little more. Of course, that side's high, perfectly in there, and it's high too. So maybe it just sits there. I don't know. Or maybe this whole thing does drop down just a bit in that hole, and that's what lets it come down. That could be a possibility too. So anyway, regardless, we'll figure that out when we get there. But if they did that, then these bolts wouldn't fit in these current holes. So I'm going to say it's probably meant to be like this. I don't know. I think it's just, they're just that rough, But I'll go back and look at the pictures of that. In the meantime, I got to take all this, the fan out, and then take all this sheet metal back off. We'll try to mark this back vent a little better, and then we'll pull the motor. So, all right, let me get to work. All right, you're not gonna believe this, but it's even another day. I ended up editing a video all morning yesterday, then I came out to do this. Then I got a call from a lady that needed me to go wait for the ADT man. So I went there, and while I was there, I fixed the fireplace and met with the ADT guy, whatever. Anyway, long story short, I stopped by to help somebody else to load a machine in the back of his truck, and by the time I got back, it was like 5:30-ish, somewhere in there, so I just called it a day. So I'm just getting back at this. It's freezing cold this morning. Even inside the building, it's cold. But let me tap these two holes out, and then we'll get some nice straight lines here going for our cutouts. We'll figure this back one out a little better, and we'll get those cut out. and then we'll go from there. I'm hoping to get this plate, maybe straighten these edges up a little bit and get this plate made this morning as well. If I can get that done, then I think we can get this sucker painted before it rusts out again on me. Not that it's rusting, but I don't want it to rust. It's got a little surface stuff there. All right, well, let me get busy. This long neck tap came in handy with this for sure. I can do one-handled. When you do one-handled, you don't stay very straight, you know. So you seem to get all crooked, or my experience, I get crooked. All right, we will have one more hole drill here for that plate, and I'll weld a nut to the back side of this when we make that panel. But I think we'll get this cut out and that cut out first, and then we'll worry about that. This may be a little cheesy, but I gotta show you this tree, how beautiful that is this morning. Colors in that thing are ridiculous. I'm digging it. All right. Back to work. I just thought I'd show you my tree. How do you know you're getting old? You enjoy things like that. How nature, it's amazing. Anyway, all right, back to work. All right, so I've just been drawing, you know, the squares, making straight squares and then drawing them on there and trying to get things lined up. Then I started working on this. I'm trying to figure out how it's going to go. I only have a 1/4 inch here to play with because it'll hit the side of the big pan down here if I go any further. So I measured that out, which really doesn't give me a lot of room, but it gives me enough. And then I think I'm going to use this little flat iron and just weld that on there like that. And then that'll allow me to slide that in here. And then I'll put a hole here through and weld a nut on the side, so then it'll sit in there. Something like that. Or that's what I'm thinking anyway. You know, it'll be underneath, of course. But I'm just trying to get it figured out first. But I think this is going to work. I just got to, I wish I had cut this hole here. I should have done this service hole myself instead of letting him cut it for me. Not his fault, my fault for sure, but I just wish I had not had that in there, and then I could push that plate a little more this way, because really you're trying to get to the oil, and it's more over here than it is over here. So I could have come off this at least an inch. But it is what it is. I had him cut it, so it is what it is. I did that. All right, so I need to get this cut, and then I'll weld that on there, and then we'll drill the holes for the screws after we get that on there, because I want to after I put this on there, I want to push it as tight as I can, and then drill the hole, and that'll let us know, so it'll be nice and tight, and then that bolt will really hold it this way. I may even do 2 bolts. Let me cut this, and then we'll tack that on there. We'll kind of get a feel for if it's going to work, then screw it under, and then I'll probably take this outside before I cut it, because it's going to make a big mess. I don't know, we'll see. It's cold as crap out there. right, I think I'm changing my plans here a little bit. I think I'm gonna leave that flat down in there. And then I'm gonna weld one on top of it over the gap so that but then it's not gonna leave me much room. I guess as long as I push it up and then push it in, it'll be fine. There's not gonna be much slop, oh, there won't be any slop there at all. It'll be tight. But I think if I just, I think that's gonna work better. If I weld that in and then weld a piece on top of it over that lip, I think that's a better fit. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna tack this here and then tack one on top. All right, so I think we'll let that cool a second. Then I'll play with it just to make sure I can slide it in and out there okay. And if I can, then we'll go ahead and drill this hole so it's done, and we'll put the nut on that, fit everything up. Then I'm gonna come back in and clean these edges back up a little bit with the grinder, but I just gotta be careful not to take too much off on this side. So yeah, I think that's gonna work good. I mean, it's as far off as I can get it off the edge on this side. Again, I wish I'd cut this myself. I would have pushed it over just a little bit, but that's okay. You know, I got what I asked for. I could make this a little bit bigger. I don't think I need to. I should measure back from this foot. That's what I'll do. From that foot to the oil pan is about, looks like 3.5 inches. So from this foot to there, 3.5 inches, that gives me plenty of room to get to that bolt. So that panel will work just fine. But I think this is the right size bolt for this. This will give me room for a washer, lock washer on it too. After I get it on there, I need to clean that up some. I can get flat on it. That's going to work. Get metal shavings all over me. By the way, somebody mentioned my jacket. They didn't like my jacket. Time for a new one. You're right, my wife thinks the same as you. She can't stand it. All right. But it's comfy, and I had it for years, and my sister actually sewed it up for me one time, but it just doesn't stay. Well, I got shavings all over my arm doing that. But it just doesn't stay good. It just keeps falling apart. It's getting too thin. But I like it. I have other ones, they just don't, they're not the same. What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me? Are you caught up or something? Oh, you are. right, so last time I had this in the pan, I kind of made this line, right? Traced that outer thing. So what I'm worried about now is this going to go straight, and then this is not going to be able to be opened? And so I want to go ahead and mark that and shape it the way it needs to be ASAP. So let me get this in here. I'll put some cardboard down so I don't scratch the crap out of it. And we'll bolt her in. Let's see, the cardboard will be right in the way for that, huh? Well, I'll bolt 2 of the bolts just so I know that it's lined up. And then we will draw that underneath there again and make sure it doesn't cover. So, all right, let me do that. It's always something in it. Which when you think you're done, you're not. You're not done. I don't lift this thing too much. My back's killing me. That's a killer. That's a killer. Oh. So hard on the back. So hard on the back. So the side of this is going to be cut off almost even with that line. And that's probably where you got the line from. Oh, that sucks. So I guess it's good we're catching it now, though. But it still sucks. Yeah, that's in the hole, so that's right. All right, well, we'll take this out and we'll cut this, it looks like this whole side off, and then an angle piece this way off, and we'll go from there. It is the outside line, so it's the side away from it. This sucks. Better to catch it now, though. Holy cow, that's half the door. Well, that really, I mean, that's crazy. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Yeah, I should have done this before. That's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be a problem. That's gonna be open here, so I'm gonna have to weld a piece back in there. Ain't that shady? I wish I didn't cut that box, because then I would have. Yeah, well, what can you do? All right, well, all I can do is make a straight line, cut it off. No sense rounding that corner because well, I guess you can round the corner because it'll be up high. So you can round the corners on it and then use this piece, tack it in there, put it back in. And now I got to take my little pieces off. No, because that'll be the edge. So it'll be cutting right down the edge of that. No, it won't. You'll have to move. All right, so yeah, now I need to fill in the gap there on the other side. So that sucks. All right, well, no sense crying about it. Let's get that piece made and welded in there, and then we can move on. All right, so I've been making quite the mess. Let's see, I cut this piece out. It's a little short, but it's the scrap I had. So I'm just gonna weld that in here to make this piece come out longer. And then I'll tack weld this piece, which I just ground off the other thing. And I'll tack it back on somewhere right in there. I know this isn't the straightest piece, but it's the piece I have. I don't have a way to cut it much straighter than that. You know, I can put it on this side and then it's real gappy, but yeah. I wish I had like a cutter, but I don't, so I will make that work just like that. All right, well, let's tack that in and go from there. And then I got to run down and help a guy winterize his RV, so I'll be out of pocket, but let me get this tacked in anyway. At least we'll have that much done, and we can move on from there when I get back. All right, so we got that tacked in. Don't, never mind my welds. Actually, they don't look terrible. They're just not very uniform. So that'll work. It's gonna hold that little plate in there. I'll grind this down a little bit, try to straighten it out some, but, and then we'll grind the welds down. So it may smooth it out, but that'll hold. That'll be push that piece over. Again, I wish I hadn't had them cut that out before, but I did. My fault. Then I changed this plate. I just cut it down and cut the move the block over. We'll grind all this stuff off as well, or sand it off or whatever, all the little pellets. But that should fit in there like so, and that fixes our gap problem. I ain't gonna lie to you, it's so frustrating sometimes because you think you're doing good and then you just blow it, or I do. So let me get this out of here a little bit. Heck, they should have seen fit right anymore. What's going on here? What are you doing? Why aren't you fitting? Oh, it's got pebbles down here. Dang it. Oh, I must be hitting something under here. So I'll ground this weld down. All right, well, let me go help this guy, and I'll get back to this when I get back. All right, so I got my buddy's motorhome winterized with him today. It's the first time he's done it, so it's always fun to do a new one because you got to find everything. But yeah, let me get the grinder. We'll get this weld ground down. We'll flip it over. We'll weld the other side up and grind that down. And then we can move on to the muffler brackets, which I think, you know what? I think we got to set the motor in there to figure out exactly where that'll go. And there's gonna have to be a hole for the muffler to go out, exhaust to go out of too, which I just thought about. And I think that went on the end of the radiator hole, but I'm not sure. So we're gonna have to figure that out too, because that still has to be cut in as well. Son of a gun, there's always more in there. All right, so I got that welds all ground down here. Pretty decent. I could do a little more, but I think that's gonna be good enough. So I'm gonna flip this over, I'll weld the other side, and then grind that down, and we'll call that good. And then we can move on. Yeah, it's been kind of a slow day for getting stuff done. I figured I'd get a lot more done than this, but that's the way it goes. So let me get this flipped over, get that welded in, so we can at least call this part complete today. All right, so I just did that so they wouldn't rattle around. It is stainless, so I don't know how well it's going to hold, but whatever. That'll hold enough to not rattle around. Anyway, I'm going to get cleaned up here, and then I'm going to, vacuum the pan up and all that, and then I'll set it down, and we'll mount the engine back on it, and then just kind of test fit the muffler and figure out where the muffler brackets are going to go. And then we'll just kind of go from there. I think this is going to be it for the night. I'll put it on here and kind of mount it up. we'll kind of set the muffler in there and kind of figure, maybe even draw the lines, but it ought to all get to welding it in today. We'll see. I'm about beat. So, yep, let me get this, I guess I got to get it off this wagon, get it back onto there, and then get the engine on. All right, let me let it cool down and we'll get to that. All right, so we got this setting in here. I've got the bolts in the front. I don't have them all the way in, but I mean, they'll work right where they are. So for now I just kind of need to mock up this muffler and see where it's going to sit in here. There is a wall that goes here, and there's a wall that goes here. So that muffler has to fit right in that little piece right there. So it'll be interesting to see how we get this done. But yeah, it's going to be challenging for sure. All right, well, let's get this thing cracked open. I should have put an elbow on that thing, probably. Elbow on the manifold, and it can just go whoop. But it's going to go out and around. Yeah, I think it goes in the side, so it's going to go out and around. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. All right, let me play with this, and I'll get back to you. So I'm probably going to call it a night. We need some pretty good headway. We got the machine in here. We got all of the bottom cut out except for where the exhaust goes. We still have to do that. I probably should have just gone ahead and done that, but I want to do the sheet metal for this piece first so that it sets on there right. And then I'll cut the exhaust out. Excuse me. Ugh. We do have the exhaust sitting in there. I cut this air brake bracket to where it fit right and tack that in there so it's sitting in there. The other side I can't get on there because I have to cut a little bolt piece that they put on there to hold the tag on. I've got to cut that off so it's in the way so that that bracket goes flush up against the exhaust, and then I can tack that on. But it's in the position that it's supposed to be in, so as long as I'm careful when I lift the engine and don't knock it, it'll be okay. Let's see. Sheet metal, I'm really to a point where I'm going to work on this sheet metal around the front here and get rid of all the roach metal, but I'm going to have to get that cut. I don't like this wobbly stuff I've been doing with this cutter. I want it to be straight. So maybe I'll run out to Rodney's and have him shear off some metal into some 2-foot strips where I can just cut the ends but not the rest of it, and that would work out just fine. So yeah, maybe I'll do that tomorrow. Excuse me. Woo. But pretty good progress today. I still got to stop and help people, which I think is important, but that slows you down just a little bit. But we still got a lot accomplished. I'd like to find an eye bolt for the back here, so I can hook those two and that to the excavator, and that way it wouldn't tilt so bad when I set it in there, because I got to be really careful with this exhaust now that I've got in there. Usually I set that in there and kind of spin it, but I'm going to need to be putting it in there a lot more straight, and I cannot hardly lift the rear end of that thing. It is heavy. So for my back, I could do it, but I'd hurt myself. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to call it a night, I think. Pretty good headway, honestly. Yeah, it really slowed me down having to weld in an extra piece in there. We shifted that box this way. I wish I had measured it out first before I wish I'd just cut it myself and and waited, but I had him cut it, which is not his fault. It's totally my fault. He just did the best thing he thought he could do based on what we had in that rusted out pan down there. So, excuse me again. Whoa. All right, well, I'm going to get. You guys have a good evening. Probably Jeff called me.